1996, a year of heavy rock albums, this time against the trends, against the grain. This is the year where albums were more raw and or angrier, and in some case, a much more bigger sound. This time, the heavier bands just had enough. And speaking about killing trends, we're going to start off with Pantera, the great southern trend kill, Elektra Records. Pantera was a band that just got heavier and heavier as time went by, with no fucks given about album sales or status. With down-tuned guitars, angrier vocals, and raw production. Till this day, this is their heaviest fucking album made, and it still reached number 4 on the Billboard 200 charts. Vocalist Seth Putnam from the band Anal Cunt even makes several guest appearances throughout the record. Pantera frontman vocalist entered Trent Reznor's Nothing Studios to record his tracks, while the rest of the band recorded their instruments at Dimebag Darrell's Chase and Jason Studios in Texas. The singles for the album would be Drag the Waters, which is also a music video, Suicide Note Part 1, and Floods. The album is still considered a groove metal album, but it features lots of heavy thrash and death metal influences, and the album still sold platinum. I do highly recommend this album. My first few listens of this record took me a minute to get into, but over time I think this might be one of my favorites. I also highly recommend the 20th Anniversary Edition. Number 2, Corrosion of Conformity, Wise Blood, Columbia Records. And yes, there is a separate video for this album that I had previously made. Anyway, yeah, this is their 5th album and their 2nd release on Columbia Records. This album has a more raw and heavier sound than the previous release, Deliverance. With the new staff at Columbia Records, it seems that the band and the record label had disputes. Yes, the album features James Hetfield doing back vocals on the track Man or Ash, and the track Drowning in a Daydream was nominated for a Grammy and is also a single and features the song Fortunate Son, written by Creedence Clearwater Revival. Several other songs were recorded that are not featured on the album, such as Land of the Free Disease, which is only available on the import edition, a Black Flag cover called I've Heard It Before, where drummer Reed Mullen did the vocals, and that's only featured on a single for the track Wise Blood on a 7-inch vinyl shaped like a pig head. I'll keep this section short and sweet, but you could check out the separate video for this album. And this is probably my favorite album by my favorite band, by the way. Number 3, we're going to go with Crowbar, Broken Glass on Pavement Records. This would be their 4th full-length release, and the style is sludge metal like the previous albums. And this time the majority of the tracks are fast hardcore, with a few doom tracks for good measure. The vocal delivery by Kirk Windstein appears to be more strained and angrier sounding. Pantera vocalist Philip Anselmo provides additional voices throughout the record as well. This is also the first Crowbar album to feature the return of original drummer Jimmy Bower, and the final album to feature guitarist Matt Thomas. The production of the album is pretty clean, minus the vocals like I said before, but the guitar is heavy as fuck. This might be the first Crowbar album where the guitars are really in your face, and not comparing the previous records, that is. Number 4, Sepultura Roots, Roadrunner Records. The final album to feature founding vocalist and guitarist Max Cavalera. The album was produced by Ross Robinson. The band also went through a transition from death metal, thrash metal, and this time a groove metal album, with new metal overtones in the mix. The production of the album is raw, with in-your-face, low A-tuned guitars, slower tempos, and even more strained vocals. The album also has a heavy tribal influence, with the use of various percussions in the mix. The track, Look Away, features Mike Patton from Faith No More, Jonathan Davis and David Silveria from Korn, as well as DJ Lethal. The track, It's Sorry, also features the Chavante tribe doing percussion and chanting. The singles for the album are Roots Bloody Roots, Attitude, and Rada Mahata. This album also was a gold seller. Number 5, Biohazard, Mata Leo, Warner Brothers Records. The title is Portuguese for Lion Killer, which is the name of a Brazilian jiu-jitsu chokehold. This is the band's overall 4th record and 2nd and final release on Warner Brothers Records. This is also the band's only release as a 3-piece lineup, with the departure of lead guitarist Bobby Hambill. Not quite as successful as the previous release, State of the World Address from 1994, and the style of the album is a little more punk hardcore. 2 music videos were made for this album, A Lot to Learn and Authority. And due to lackluster sales, Warner Brothers dropped the band from the label. DJ Lethal also makes a guest appearance on this album as well, doing turntables. Number 6, Acid Bath, Pagan Terrorism Tactics, Rotten Records. This is their second and final ever release by the band, due to the death of their bass player, Audie Petrie, delivering sludge metal just like the debut album before. The album was produced by Keith Falgo, and the artwork was done by Jack Kevorkian. The album style is sludge metal just like the debut album, but this time more melodic and bigger guitar sound. Most fans of the band find this album as a secondary release, and at times I find this album even better than the debut. When the band split up, singer Dax Riggs and guitarist Mike Sanchez formed Agents of Oblivion, while guitarist and second vocalist Sammy Pierre Douay focused on his side project, Goat Horror, which became a full-time band, as well as joining Crowbar as a second guitar player. Number 7, Slayer, Undisputed Attitude, American Records. Well, this album is so fucking angry, it's a hardcore and punk covers album. Only 3 of the songs on there are originals. These originals would be Gemini, Can't Stand You, and DDAMM, which stands for Drunk Drivers Against Mad Mothers. Can't Stand You and DDAMM were songs written by Jeff Hanneman's side band, Pap Smear. The rest of the album that consists of covers by bands such as Verbal Abuse, TSOL, Minor Threat, DRI, Dr. No, The Stooges, etc. The sound production is raw and in your face, and not as polished as the previous album, Divine Intervention. The European and Japanese imports feature several bonus tracks. There was a little controversy during the album, with the cover of Minor Threat's Guilty for Being White being mistaken for some white supremacy bullshit. But hey, it's punk rock, gotta have some controversy and piss people off. Fuck it. I'm gonna keep this one short and sweet as well. So here's a quickie. Soundgarden, Down on the Upside, their 5th album on A&M Records. This album wasn't as heavy or angry as the previous albums, Super Unknown and Bad Motorfinger, etc. But it was quite dark, and it was definitely more of a raw production. Still a good seller, several radio hits as well, with tracks such as Pretty News, Burden in My Hand, Blow Up the Outside World, and Ty Cobb. And it seemed like it would have been their final album, since it took over a decade for the next one to come out. Can't forget Motorhead, with the album Overnight Sensation, this time the return of a 3-piece lineup. And this album's a little more diverse than the previous album, Sacrifice, this time with Lemmy overdubbing harmonica and acoustic guitar on a few tracks. And I'm going to go with an obscure one, I guess. The band would be Floodgate, and their only album ever was called Penalty, released by Roadrunner Records. I'll try to keep this one short because I did mention this on a previous video. One album wonders. At the time, Floodgate was a brand new band formed by former Ex-Hoarder vocalist Kyle Thomas, who also played guitar in this band. The style was pretty much stoner rock doom metal, similar to Corrosion of Conformity and The Obsessed, more than Ex-Hoarder. Floodgate opened for Sepultura to support the album. And yes, the production of this album is pretty raw. The louder you turn it up, the better it sounds actually. The guitars, the bass, and the drums are in your face. Same with the vocals. And the whole album kicks ass, there is no fucking filler. Thank you for checking out Mean Street Journal. Until next time, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the bell, and all that good shit. Mean Street Journal is also on Spotify. And also check out Mean Street Wear on TeePublic for some offensive merch. See ya.